Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. So today we're going to jump back in with Tri-Brigade Spright, which is a deck that I've been meaning to come back to pretty consistently more often than I have. Or rather, I should say that I've pretty consistently been not playing it as much as I've been meaning to. You know, when Sprites first came out, I really thought that like this was going to be the variant I was going to cling to, even though I didn't think it was going to be the best one. I was like, you know what, I love Tri-Brigade so much, I'm going to play this variant a lot anyway. But honestly, what it really comes down to is that, like, when I play this deck, you can just kind of feel that it's not complete. Like, yeah, the lines don't feel, like, super duper good to do all the time, I'll be honest with you. And, that's mostly not, it's not because the lines are, like, terrible or anything, but, it's mostly just because we're lacking, like, another solid link to end on. I've talked about this before. It's got to either be Spright Sprint and or Pit Knight Airly, although to be fair, Spright Sprint is less of like an end piece and more of like a just generally really good card for the deck, as it's able to send a level 2 monster directly from the deck to the graveyard. Once that comes out, then you can start sending Nimble Anglers to get multiple Nimble Beavers, or in this deck you can send Kitt and basically have Sprint act as a kind of Fraktall as well. The Pit Knight Airly would be a good monster effect negation on a Link 2 if, again, you know, it was in the game. So, I played some games with Tri-Brigade Spright to not only play with the deck a little bit more, but also to get some more testing in with Dark Ruler no more. I'm kind of trying to test this card across a couple of different decks, mostly Spright variants, in this current meta, just to see how much I really like it in the main deck overall. In theory, it should be pretty good right now. It was already pretty good in the mostly Spright meta, but it should also, again, in theory, be good against the Ishizu piles, particularly the ones that end on really big boards like Adamantipator. Really, a lot of these decks that are ending on like Barren plus a whole bunch of other stuff. Dark Ruler no more can stop all of that without being able to be negated by stuff like Barren. I like it a little more than evenly matched right now for that reason. So I decided to just jam 3 Dark Ruler no more in this deck and see how well it did. I don't know if it actually came up during our games that we're going to see here. I don't remember off the top of my head, honestly. Another thing, too, like, I'm just going to preface by saying this. I will make a few misplays in the games coming up here. I'll be honest, when I was playing this, like, play session, I'm going to make a couple of excuses for myself here. When I was playing this play session, it was also, as I often do, I was getting in some, like, podcasting / video watching, because very often, just due to my schedule, my playing Master Duel time and, like, enjoying videos and podcast time has to, like, overlap. So, I was a little bit distracted in that regard. And, you know, like I was saying at the start, like, I just have not played this deck nearly as much as I would have liked to, honestly. And for that reason, I just tend to forget, like, a lot of the combo lines sometimes. Or I'm like, oh yeah, I can't use sprites as materials because I've used a Tri-Brigade monsters effect. Or like, oh yeah, I actually needed to place that in a different zone because I specifically need a zone open to place, like, the IP Masquerena in this combo line. Tri-Brigade Spright actually has pretty involved combo lines in that regard. Other Spright variants, it kind of doesn't matter usually where you, like, place stuff in zones and whatnot. So yeah, I'm not used to having to be so careful, which is really my just way of saying, like, yeah, I played sloppy here, but you know what? Sloppy play, we still got some W's, and it's gonna happen. Like, I actually have seen and heard from a few of my patrons have said that, like, they actually enjoy watching games when people misplay because it's you know, we're not going to play, this is the point I've made on the channel too, we're not going to play perfect every single time, so it's really good to, like, know that, like, one, other people out there are also misplaying and still able to do well, and two, kind of show what happens, like, you know, even if we misplay, like, how can we still make the best of the situation that we're in and try to carry out the win, you know, from there on. So that's kind of like twofold reason why I don't mind at all showing games when I misplay. Like, I know I'm gonna get comments like, oh, you know, you misplay, like, blah, blah, you know, it's whatever, it happens. So, yeah, other than the Dark Rulers no mores, that feels weird to say. Other than those, I haven't really made any major changes to this deck. Still not playing Rescue Cat or Nimble Beaver right now. Usually this deck plays one of those two engines, and, like, there are a lot of, like, good combos off of Rescue Cat, but that's, like, when it resolves, which honestly is not a lot of the time, so still don't really feel the need necessarily to have it. We are rocking triple Dark Ruler no more and triple tackle. I said tackle twice. We're playing Oh my god. We're playing 3 Triple Tactics Talent. There, I got it out. Jeez, that's quite a tongue twister. We're playing 3 of this card, and that's even in addition to the 3 Dark Ruin no more. Normally, I have talked in the past about playing one or the other, but yeah, I'm trying out both just to see how good it is here. So let's go ahead and break this list down card by card, as we always do, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at some gameplay. So we're playing 1 PSY-Frame Driver, 2 Tri-Brigade Nervall, 3 Maxx, 2 PSY-Framegear Gamma, 2 Tri-Brigade Kerass, sorry, 3 Tri-Brigade Kerass, 3 Tri-Brigade Kitt, 3 Spright Blue, 2 Spright Jet, 1 Spright Red, 1 Spright Carrot, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Tri-Brigade Fraktall, 3 Dark Ruin no more, 3 Triple Tactics Talent, 2 Fire Formation Tenki, 2 Called by the Grave, 2 Spright Starter, 1 Spright Smashers, and then 1 Tri-Brigade Revolt. That's going to round out our main deck. For the extra deck, we're on 2 Gigatic Spright, 1 Salamangreat Almiraj, 1 PSY-Framelord Lambda, 1 IEP Masquerena, 1 Ancient Warrior's Oath Double Dragon Lords, 2 Tri-Brigade Ferrijit, the Barren Blossom, 1 Tri-Brigade Bearbrumm, the Rampant Rampager, 2 Spright Elf, 1, almost called it IEP, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Tri-Brigade Rugal, the Silver Sheller, 1 Accesscode Talker, and then finally 1 Tri-Brigade Shurg, the Ominous Omen. So it's going to round out the list. Now let's go take a look at some games. Alright, duel number 1 here is going to be against Branded Predaplant. It's definitely been a minute since we've seen this deck, but this is one of the nice things about these Diamond 1 duels, that you get to see other decks that you don't normally see on many other places in the ladder. So we do open Dark Ruin no more, but we're going first. We also open Fraktall and 2 Tenkis, not super lucky. Still going to throw out a Tenki before I activate Fraktall for this exact reason, just to see if my opponent has an Ash Blossom. Normally I play the Tenki just to see if priority gets passed to them. That could be an indication that they have Ash Blossom or Maxx, but here my opponent just activated the Ash, and it's like, that is A-okay with me, especially like look at the rest of my hand here. But this is the exact reason why you don't want to Ash Blossom Tenki, is that they'll often just toss out a Fraktall right afterward, or maybe not often, but it's not an unrealistic like thing to happen, as you can see here. So I'm gonna then use the Nervall to add Kitt. Normally we do it the other way around in other Tri-Brigade decks, but here I want the Kitt around as a level 2 material, and I'm going to use its other effect later to send a Kerass to bring back later. So just going to use Fraktall to straight up send Nervall. We have an Ash Blossom for our opponent's Maxx. After banishing 2 to summon the Ferrijit, we're going to use those 2 cards to make the Spright Elf. It's very important for Tri-Brigade Spright, actually, that you do put Spright Elf in the right extra monster zone and not the left. Normally when I'm playing Pure Spright, I put Spright Elf in the left zone. Generally, I just like to put stuff in the left zone because it's a very niche case, but it actually blocks them from being able to use the, what is it called, the Dark Templar at Ignister. Especially in this meta that's so niche, it's probably not going to come up, but there's no real like downside to it in most decks. In this case, we actually do want to put Elf in the right zone, so that way when we put Bearbrumm in the middle column, it points to the left, ideally to an open zone there. So that is actually very important. Spright Elf does want to be in the right extra deck monster zone here, but we end up drawing a Fraktall off the Ferrijit. That's fine, I'll just go ahead and put back the Tenki instead. Go to activate our Spright Elf's effect. Our opponent has another form of disruption, this time in the form of Spright Elf. So it's pretty brutal overall. Our opponent had a lot of disruption for us on turn 1 here. They had Maxx, Ash Blossom, and Imperm, all 3 of those cards. Granted, the Maxx didn't resolve, and the Ash Blossom was pretty meh. But yeah, no, that is absolutely going to cut us short, that Imperm, because normally what we would do is bring back Kerass with the Elf, right? Then we can banish the Kitt and the Ferrijit to make a Bearbrumm, and then from there we can continue our plays and search up a Revolt, but nope, we're just going to have to pass back to our opponent here. Not ideal at all, but what can you do? Fortunately for us, our opponent's just got a T-set. They don't really have much else, so it seems like our opponent just did not really have that great of an opening hand here. It was mostly disruption. I wondered if this was going to be the case, because usually if your opponent goes first and then just doesn't have plays, that's an indicator that they're on a lot of disruption. But sometimes if they go first and it seems like they have like 3 or 4 cards worth of disruption, it could mean the opposite, or the inverse rather, that then they might not have plays for their turn. And that did end up being the case here. So during the end of my opponent's main phase, I'm absolutely going to use this Elf to go ahead and bring back our Kitt. We have the materials in our graveyard to go ahead and use the Kitt right away. But first I'm actually going to use the Fraktall effect to set up some more Tri-Brigade materials engrave, also getting the search off of Nervall for another kit here. We'll use Spright Elf's effect next because we're actually going to use it as a material. We can do that because we didn't summon it this turn in order to go for a Nightmare Unicorn. I want to use this to force my opponent's back row and then potentially go into Accesscode Talker. Pitching the Dark Ruler no more, we are very clearly not going to end up needing that. Opponent's face down is actually a Super Poly. Here I was terrified because I thought it was going to be Brandon. And I was like, oh no, is this set monster Albaz? Because that would actually be an insanely good play if that were the case. But thankfully for me, it's actually not going to be Albaz. It's just going to be the Predaplant Buffolicula? The frog. It's just the Predaplant frog. So they're just going to make a Chimera Rafflesia here, which does not have any relevant quick effects. And they're just, yeah, they're going to concede straight afterward. They know that I can just go ahead and use the Kerass effect to banish 3 from grave, make an access code that way. I can banish 4, make a Shurig, and I still have my normal summon as well, so there's just no shortage of lines here. And I also still get the Kitt effect. It's not really going to matter, but that should definitely put enough materials in grave for me to be able to find enough damage for an OTK here. So yeah, we managed to play through our opponent's disruption and actually force a lot of it out in a way that we were able to either have the counter for it and having the Ash Blossom for C, or, you know, we were able to bait out the Ash Blossom from them with the Tenki. The Emperor did stop us quite a bit, but we were just really lucky our opponent didn't have more solid plays during their turn. So that's going to go ahead and do it for that game, but we still have plenty more. Let's go and take a look at this next one here. Alright, now we're going to be up against Orcust. Once again, another fun deck that you probably wouldn't see too much on ladder, but is still a fairly good rogue deck and is present here in good old Diamond 1. Alright, we're going to take the first turn here, and this hand, aside from Starter, does not really have too much going for it, although at the very least, if they have Ash Blossom or Maxx C in response to Starter, we have Gamma here, but they don't. So we're just going to go ahead and summon the blue, and then we special summon the Jet. We, of course, already have the other starter in hand, so we'll just grab our Spright Smashers. Then we get to overlay these two for our Gigantic Spright. I'm going to end up using this to summon the Kitt. Then we can link off the Kitt and the Gigantic Spright for the Elf. That will trigger the Kitt's effect, allowing us to send Nervall. Nervall is going to be used to add Fraktall in this case. We're going to want to send Fraktall, or use Fraktall to send Kerass. I'm going to get that in the graveyard. Mostly to have more Tri-types engrave. Normally we like to have Kerass engraved anyway because we usually use both Kitt and Kerass, bringing the Kerass back with Elf. We're going to try to do the same here. I guess technically bring back Kitt instead of the Kerass, but we're not going to end up using both. I'm still going to keep the Kerass in graveyard for the next time around. You'll also notice that I put Spright Elf in the left monster zone here. As I mentioned before, that is a misplay. It should be in the right. It's not going to matter for this play in particular, but all the same, Elf generally does want to pretty much always be in the right column when you're playing exactly Tri-Brigade Spright. Now, I could have gone for the IP Masquerena here, but I actually decided to go for the PSY-Frame Lambda to make this Gamma in my hand live. That will turn on another form of disruption that's actually probably better than Masquerena, the ability to both negate and destroy a monster. So, pretty nice setup here. I believe we should have enough Tri-types to Revolt. Yes, we do have enough to Revolt. We have a Spright Smasher setup. We have a starter that can grab a Carrot to negate a spell trap. And we have the PSY-Framelord Lambda to negate with the Gamma as well. So things are looking pretty good for me here. Except I misplayed here. I actually fired off starter during the draw phase. Normally this is what you want to do, however I just inadvertently turned off my own Gamma. It's not because we have monsters on the field, because of course Lambda allows us to circumvent that restriction. However, it's because of Starter's effect. Starter says I can't special summon monsters except for level, rank, and link 2. And you might be thinking, well, Gamma's level 2, so it's fine, right? Gamma's 2, but Driver is 6, and if we can't summon Driver, we can't use Gamma. So, yeah, like I said, I accidentally turned off my own Gamma there, so misplay on my part, but we should still have enough disruption here to hopefully still be able to circumvent all that. So, opponent's going to activate Scrapyard here. I debated if I wanted to negate this or not, but I decided not to. But I'm still going to go ahead and summon the Jet here to potentially send off with the Carrot as well. Even if I can't use Lambda to use Gamma this turn, I could still potentially use it to make a higher link rating monster on my turn. So I'd like to keep the link 2 around if possible. The opponent is setting up a decent number of things here, but I'm not really too scared because I know the Scrap Wyvern That's not an effect that activates on summon, so I'm going to get an opportunity to banish it with the Smashers. And it does end up pretty hugely disrupting my opponent, so yeah, they don't end up having any other plays beyond that. And I knew that Wyvern was a really good choke point for this deck from the times that I've played against it. I just wasn't sure if maybe they'd have something else in addition to that as well. So once again, I'm going to go for a Nightmare Unicorn here to not only spin away the back row, but also set up the line for the Accesscode Talker here. Opponent's going to chain the Droplet. That's totally fine. I don't care at all, because again, the purpose of this Unicorn was just to get rid of the back row. But now I can use Tenki to search up a Fraktall, summon that, use Fraktall's effect to summon some amount of, like, you know, link monsters, and then link into an Accesscode. And just like last time, my opponent is going to concede right before I'm actually able to play that out. But that is, of course, how the rest of that game was going to follow. So it was actually very similar to the first one in that regard. And again, I could have actually had the Gamma monster effect negate. Because that could have been live, I think I would have used that on... Let me actually go through the clipboard here and see what I would have used that on. Because we actually did not end up using the Carrot that we stopped ourselves from being able to negate their monster effect for. So I don't think I would have used that on the Mothman effect. No point to do it that early. So yeah, same. I don't think I would have used the monster effect negate on any of the dangers, because the dangers are never going to be like the main play themselves, right? The danger is very much an engine to facilitate the plays. So and they end up discarding their Scrap Raptor. I don't think I would have negated this either, because they don't really need the normal summon, and if it gets destroyed, well, it has to be destroyed by the effect of a scrap card. So that might have actually not been terrible, but no, I think even then the Wyvern would have been the way to go. Then we could have saved the starter, or not the starter, the Smashers, the Spright Smashers. They would have potentially had another play there. Could have also maybe used it on this World Legacy World Wand as well, but I mean, either way, stopping the Scrap Wyvern ended up being enough there, so not really too fussed about it, ultimately. It was still a misplay, though. Like, I'm not going to pretend like it was okay just because we won. We obviously still don't want to be making misplays. Like, that could have very easily cost us the game, and in the future, if we're not careful, could still cost us games moving forward. But that's going to do it for that game. So got a couple more. Let's dive straight into the next one here. All right, next game here is going to be against Runic Spright. Haven't really been seeing this deck around as much. I mean, it makes sense with the Ishizu decks running around. Those shufflers really kill the Runic Fountain. They really, really do. So, once again, we get to go first. Have a very solid opening hand here. We get to do Tenki plus Spright Blue plays. But if you've seen my combo guide, I am going to waver from it. No real excuse there, again, except for just sloppy play for multiple reasons, for not being as focused as I should be, and for also not being as familiar with the deck as I should be. I really need to start, like, in cases like this, I really do need to just look at my own combo. As sad as that sounds, that I would need to read my own combo guide that I made. This is going to be me making my excuses here, but I do play, like, a pretty large variety of decks. And in that regard, it can often be pretty easy to, like, especially because I do tend to focus a lot and think mostly about one at a time at any given time. My misplay here was that the Spright Red should have been in the far right zone instead of the middle one. You want to put the Bearbrumm here. Also, the Gigantic Spright should not be here because I'm not able to use it as a material, so I can't move it from this zone. So mainly the misplay that I make here is I'm not going to be able to summon IEP Masquerena. I mean, as you can see, we've got Red and Carrot, and we have a call by as well. So, like, and we're gonna set up a Revolt here too. So, like, you could argue that, like, and we have Lambda as well. So it's like you could argue that, like, we didn't even need the IEP here, but ideally we would have also set up an IEP here as well. So I think it might have also been activating that starter when I did. Might have also, like, put an extra body on the field. So. Opponent's got Lava Golem plus evenly. That's going to be pretty brutal. It's actually enough to take out our whole board. So I'm going to keep the Tri-Brigade Revolt. That's definitely the best card here, in my opinion. So I knew pretty much, because I saw Lava Golem plus evenly exactly, that it was probably just going to be Runic Spright. So right now I'm thinking, okay, I'll probably just go ahead and fire off the Revolt when they activate Fountain, so I can use sure to banish the Fountain there. Although I did also think maybe if they summon Hugin, I'll just Gamma it. And that actually isn't going to end up being what I do here. I want to make use of the Gamma while I have the opportunity to. I might not get an opportunity later. This does mean I won't have enough zones to summon a Shurg if I want to do that with Revolt, but we can also just do that during our next turn to make plays anyway, and then we can set up our graveyard and be able to go into an easy Accesscode Talker. Who's going to end up using their Flashing Fire to go into another Hugin anyway, which is a little confusing, because like even if they discard their last card for Fountain, well, I thought it was confusing until I was like, oh yeah, it's Sprites, duh, so the special blue ends up being their last card here. This is actually a case where I think the Revolt would have ultimately been better. I don't know though, it actually wouldn't have mattered though, right? Because even if I would have revolted and banished their first Hugin, they still could have just special another Hugin in blue anyway, so I don't really think the Spright lines here were super avoidable. But I'm definitely going to have to end up chaining Revolt either way, because my opponent is going to activate their Spright Smashers. Right now, if I would have let it resolve, they would have just banished the Revolt while it was face down. They know the last card is Revolt, so they still get to banish the, Rugal that I'm ultimately going to summon here, but at least this way, I'm not going to end up losing out on my searches. I still get to search with Nervall and then send a card with Kitt as well. I'll just have Kitt send this Kerass. It doesn't really matter ultimately what I send here. Not too much anyway. And then I'll search a Kitt from my deck. So Poe's going to pass with only an Elf up and not really anything at all to bring it back, or bring back with it, just this Hugin here. So, I mean, that's fine. Although, no, they can't bring back the Hugin, can they? Because I don't think the runic cards actually count as fusion summons. No, they don't count as fusion summons. So this Elf is totally dead. Doesn't even have anything to bring back. What did I top deck here? The Spright Starter? Yeah, that's obviously insane. And in conjunction with my Tri-Brigades is going to very easily be more than enough to find lethal here. I'm just going to use Kitt to summon the Shurg and then overlay the Elf and the Kitt into a Gigantic Spright with 6200 attack. I can use a Gigantic Spright to pull out a blue, or no, we've already used a blue, so I'm just going to get Kerass here, another Kerass. And at this point, I know my opponent doesn't have anything, and I've got, 8,000 points of damage on board, so even though I could continue comboing, no point in doing that. We're just going to swing in for lethal here. Alright, boom, there's that game against Runic Spright. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our last duel. And this last duel is going to be against Rika Sun Avalon, probably to really nobody's surprise. Well, I mean, not necessarily that we're playing against that deck, but I'm really more alluding to, like, the Sun Avalon part. Like, I can probably just say Rika, right? Like, I think pretty much every Rika deck also plays the Sun Avalon package, so I'm going to start here with the Fraktall effect. Once again, we did open Fraktall plus Spright Blue, and once again, I'm going to misplace stuff in my zones to not quite get the full combo. But, we've got Maxx plus Ash Blossom, which, like, again, I don't want to imply that, like, it's fine to misplay because we opened other good cards. Like, you still want to play optimally every single time. But, I mean, in the realistic sense of things, like, it's gonna be fine. We have enough gas here. Well, it's not even that we have enough gas, that we have enough additional disruption in line with our other plays that we have here, so. Yeah, so this time we are going to place Spright Red in the right zone, but as you can see, we still put the Gigantic Spright in the wrong zone because we can't use this as a material, so we're not going to be able to get it out of the way, so not able to make IP Masquerena in that regard. Again, like I said, I really do just need to refresh on my own combo guides before I play, as sad as that is that I have to do that. More fairly standard fairy stuff. Here comes the Bearbrumm. We're going to link those off. I'm just going to go for Lambda here, because again, I can't make the IP Masquerena because I had to use the Link Monster as a material, because I couldn't use the Gigantic Spright as a material, so. We do have the Revolt set up though. Even if we don't have room for it, there is a world where maybe we do, if our opponent removes enough of our stuff, and or we remove something with red, maybe we'll have enough room, plus, well, it would take removal from our opponent as well. But I will put another monster on the board regardless. I'll use Jet to grab a starter here. This Maxx is also live, so there is that going for us too. And here we still get to use some monster removal, this time in the form of red. I'm going to stack off the Gigantic Spright to negate and destroy, specifically the Sun Avalon Dryas. That should put a stop to their Sun Avalon plays, and it actually does. They do still have some Rika lines, though. They're going to use the Rika Cone in conjunction with the Princess in order to set up the Glamour here. Fortunately, we've got the Ash Blossom in order to negate the Glamour. I'm really glad we did that, because that's going to stop the searches and hopefully stop the rest of their plays, unless they have the card they were already going to search anyway. But on 2 cards left in hand, that doesn't seem likely. And in fact, they don't. So they're just going to have to pass back to us. Definitely nice, definitely what we like to see here. Just like our first 2 games, first thing I'm going to do is just go to Nightmare Unicorn. Let's force this back row, let's make our line into Accesscode, and ultimately, let's watch our opponent. I mean, it's going to happen here in a moment. We're going to end up watching our opponent concede pretty much in the same way that our first 2 opponents did. So, yeah, I had a lot of games that, yeah, there it is. Had a lot of games that end up going kind of pretty much exactly the same. We had a strong turn 1, we misplayed a little bit, but we had enough disruption anyway, and we found a pretty easy OTK in the following turn, which is ultimately what, not just Tri-Brigade Spright, but Tri-Brigade is a lot about, I mean, minus the misplaying part. We ideally don't do that, but Tri-Brigade is a lot about just disrupting, using your turn 1 setup, and then just pivoting into a quick OTK with Accesscode on turn 3. And we indeed saw a lot of that in these duels here. And that is going to do it for our games. Thanks for watching all of them. Now let's go ahead and move on to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now, so without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.